ברשות הרבנים, ברשות כל המשפחה, ברשות כל הקהל הקדוש. It's not an easy task to speak about my mother, Aliyah Shalom. הריני כפרת משכבה. Her qualities, her way of life, all she represented to us and to many, many other people was so awesome or so powerful that it's hard, very difficult to capture in a few short words the essence. But especially that I still don't assimilate after such a short time. We were on the phone just the day before, and not only me, other people of the family. Everything okay? How are you feeling? Okay. Baruch Hashem, fine. And all of a sudden, but Tzaddik Hashem, as we say in the Birkat Hamazon, דיין אמת, שוויצק באמת, לוקח נפשות במשפט. To say one aspect, important aspect of my mother, Aliyah Shalom, Adele בת מזל, זיכרונה לברכה, in the Parashat Yitro, it mentions ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים לגוי קדוש. What does Kohanim mean? It's obvious that not all Am Yisrael are Kohanim. You have some Kohanim, but you have most of them Leviim Israel. Rashi explains, Kohanim Sarim. כשנאמר, ובני דוד כהנים היו. Sarim means important people, princes. Apparently, it's difficult to understand because a sar is a sar only when he has people under him. He's a sar over a medina, over a city, over a province, over something. But all Am Yisrael, sarim, all of them will be princes. Who's going to be the subjects? The answer is obvious. That in Ruhaniyut, it's not that way. A sar, in Olam Hazeh, his gadlut, his ma'ala, is only because he has people less than him. Only because there are people under him, and he's above them, and he commands them, and he has more power than them. So he's a sar. He's a sar over someone else. But in Ruhaniyut, it's not the same way. A person is a sar because he has ma'alot, because he has Torah, Yitzir Shamayim, he has midot tovot, he has midot atzilot, he is close to Hashem, he is in the derech ha'emet. He's a sar, he's a melech, he's a prince. And all of them, all Am Yisrael can and have to be princes. It doesn't take away. If everybody is a sar in Olam Hazeh, then one's greatness takes away from the other ones. If everybody's a millionaire, then the money has no more value. Khalas. Millionaire only means something because you can buy something that other people cannot buy. You can have a car or a jet or a private yacht or whatever it is, which other people don't have. If everybody has it, doesn't mean anything. But in the Ruhaniyut, in the world of Ruhaniyut, it's not that way. And the gadlut of one does not detract from the gadlut of the other. Imagine all Am Yisrael, the king, and the Baalei Ruach HaKodesh, and Mekubalim. They take away Adrabah. Each one will enhance the greatness of the others. I can say about my mother, Aleha Shalom, she was a Sar. She was a princess. A princess in her manner of being, not in external way of clothing or carry yourself with a false luxury, dignity. She had intrinsic dignity and a royal bearing because her personality was such. She did not care about petty things. She only cared about important things. Her sight, her outlook was always on the dvarim which are really hashuvim, not on the dvarim which get other people excited. Olam hazeh, shtuyot, habalim. She could not tolerate when people at the table, sometimes conversation went in a way which she didn't like. If it was possible to get into Lashon Hara, that's Pshita. Obviously, she could not tolerate that. No, Lashon Hara, no, we don't talk about that. But even if it was Lashon Hara, but it sounded to her like the Dvarim Betelim. She didn't like that. She said, let's talk about the parasha. Let's talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's talk about tzaddikim. Let's talk about something. So we heard that, we understood. We shouldn't talk about what we're talking about. Let's talk about things which our mother, HaTzadeket, will feel it's kedai to talk about. It's important. My mother, Aleha Shalom, went through many difficult stages in life. And she had many blows and many different matzavim of tsar and different nisyonot. But always she overcame them and she came out stronger from them. The first thing which we remember was our Yetziat Mitzrayim. Everyone speaks about Yetziat Mitzrayim. We had another Yetziat Mitzrayim, but a difficult one. When a family is well established and comfortable and has everything they need around them, and they have the social position and everything great, all of a sudden anti-Semitism is on the rise and there's problems and you see things are changing. The country is not the same. We can't stay here anymore. We can't stay in Egypt. Khalas, finished. We have to go. They weren't so young. Father was not young. Mother was younger, but still, it's a akira. And you're leaving not in a way that you know where you're going and what you're doing and what's going to be your parnasa and your home. They didn't even know which country they're going to. And in a few days, they were from a well-established family. They were penniless refugees with no decent home. For over a year, she was in a small hotel, very pashut, no Hilton, nothing like that. They were very, very, very simple. And in a tiny room, and the children were spread out in boarding schools, and they came for Shabbatot, for Yom Tovim, and there was no way to cook there, but she had a small electric appliance, and from that small electric appliance came out the meals of Shabbat and Motov and everything. And she was mehazek everybody. Bezrat Hashem, everything will be all right. We never heard her complain that this is lacking, this is missing, no, I would like to have that. This type of talk was completely foreign to her. We have to make do with what we have, what Hashem sends us. And when we finally got the papers to go to America, it wasn't easy either. America is a golden land of opportunity, but for newcomers who come without any capital, without any basis, it's not easy at all. But Baruch Hashem, even those years were overcome. And always with the confidence, with the bitachon, with a smile, with making a good avira, without complaining, without talking any negative thoughts, nothing. Everything positive and strong and good and smiling and mehazek everybody. The major nisyonot which she had in life, or later on, when she suffered a tragedy, a tremendous tragedy, with the sudden death of her daughter Bat Zikunim, Judy Yehudit Aleha Shalom, which was a tremendous blow to her, obviously, and to my father also. And even at the Pshat HaLevaya, when she was, you could see that she was ois men. What did she say? It's a davonot. It's a davonot. She was mazdik the din. It's because of her avonot. She don't want to blame Hashem. It's her avonot. She never forgot about that. That tsar was always in her heart throughout all her life. And the more difficult stage was that after 2.5 months, my father passed away. Suddenly also with a heart attack. And obviously everybody related it to what happened to Judy. Even though he also tried to be mechazik himself, Rabbi Miller came to the house and he told him and my mother, you have to be strong and your life has to continue, and you have other children, and you have life ahead of you, and you have to do all your things. You can't sink in your despair and your tsar. And they tried. Father tried. He went to the shiurim, he went to collect tzedakah, he did everything. And even had humor once in a while. But, af al pi chen, Baralam decreed that after a short time, my mother suffered this other tremendous loss within 10 weeks. And she was mithazek. It was very, very, very hard on her, but she continued, and we felt that she became much more ruhani after that. She was always ruhani. She was never unitatu gashmiyut. But after that, she became much stronger in emunah and bitachon and tefillah and lahakpid on dikduk halacha and midot tovot, and looking at the world as a place of nisayon in order to serve better Hashem. She went through the kur habarzel of these isurim, and she emerged stronger and more purified. With all what happened to her, and she carried all this in her heart, she didn't forget it, but we saw a lot of simcha in her. We saw simcha, we saw smile, we saw words of idud, we saw words of consolation to others. Even somebody who carries his own tsar usually doesn't care about the tsar of other people. She cared very much about the tsar of other people. She felt the tsar, not only of the family, even of outside people. About the family, she cared and she remembered every single one. She had B'nai Anara. She has a large family, B'nai Anara, with many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and another generation. And she knew the name of each one, and she recognized each one. She remembered about each one. When she heard about a difficult gezerah which happened with her great-granddaughter, who had a child which was born and died almost right away. It's the 5th generation. She took it so much to heart, and she cried. And she told me, I'm not going to go to the simcha because I can't go to the simcha because I don't feel I can do it. They will see on me. She hardly knew the great-granddaughter. She knew her. She saw her when she was. But the makom she had in the life for each one was tremendous. She shared also in the semachot. She was so happy when she heard something good about somebody in the family. It was important to her, and she gave us good words, and she shared it with us. We felt that she really felt it. But not only with the family, even with the other people on the outside. Her Madame Havero was very great. She showed respect and consideration and hashivut to each person. And she taught us that. She told us in Arabic, Lazim ta'abbaru, you have to acknowledge have to show respect. You have to show that you care. You have to show that it's important. And she lived by it. I heard from my brother Shemuel that when she didn't hear about bad news which happened, some tragedy, about people that she knew, people tried not to tell her because they didn't want to cause her tsar. When she found out later, she was makpid. No, you have to tell me. I have to know. And when she knew about somebody who lost an older child like she did, she said, I know what it feels. And she went, there was a mahazek, and she spoke, and she tried her best to give koach and to be menachem. My mother, Alaha Shalom, was a Sefer Musar, living Sefer Musar. And not a Sefer Musar, mina safa v'lachutz, that she is good to say quotes to other people. She lived it, and she was not reticent in telling us. She believed in telling the children and the grandchildren what to do and what not to do, what to avoid and what to pursue. And she told us in clear ways. She always respected the independence of each family, but she felt she had a duty to tell the people exactly of her family how to behave when she saw things which are not proper, or when she saw that they needed hizuk in something. She was, especially was makpid on hinuch habanim. She didn't like the permissive way, what she called the permissive way of America, that the kids can do what they want, and they have nash whenever they want, and they scream and they do. She believed in children well behaved, knowing how to behave in front of older people, knowing how to behave at the table, knowing how to behave in all circumstances, and she tried to mahazek this as much as possible. Many times we thought, how would my mother react? What would she say? That's what she would say. She wouldn't like that. That would be completely against her grain. And that helped us. The model that she projected was very important to us. Even though the family was spread out, not everybody in the same city, not everybody in the same country, in the same continent, but nevertheless, she was my head of the family, because we all cared about her. We felt how much she cared about us, and we wanted to be, as much as possible, to find favor in her eyes, to make her happy. She had another nisayon. Very soon after the pitira of my father, she lost her property. She had a house which could have been worth a lot of money, but it was a bad investment, bad decisions, and everything was gone. And the impressive thing, she never spoke about it. She never mentioned it. Because she felt, it's gone, khalas, nothing what to do. And talking about it will bring tsar and could cause lashon hara. Because people will say, oh, it was his mistake, or that one, or this should have done this, should have that. It's finished, it's all over, khalas. Complete silence. And when people asked about things which she felt were not relevant, she said, Debarim betelim. It was her family members that she felt she could say in such a way. Debarim betelim. That's it. Habalim. Why should we talk about it? No, forget it. Because she knew what give importance to and what not give importance to. She loved to do hesed. She loved to help. When she was younger and she was able to help a lot physically, she went and she helped in all the households of the family, and other people also. She had an activity. She made a keren, L'Chilul Nishmat Yehudit, her daughter, and it was a big tirha for her. The way of raising the money, and the way and people coming all the time, knocking on the door, and people sending letters, and making out checks. But she loved to do it because she felt you have to help. People are suffering. Many people, when they see a letter in the mail saying about it's like a case, and it's like a routine. So everybody writes letters like that, so we just, shove it away. She didn't do that. She saw it, and we have to help. She saw an ad in the paper about the shiva of the son of Rabbi Miller that was in a bad financial situation. We have to help. It's the son of Rabbi Miller. We owe so much to Rabbi Miller. So, check of $500, which was much more than she could give. And she made other people give also. The parasha of my parents, or Rabbi Miller, is something special. Baruch Hashem, since Egypt, we were considered the religious family. In standards of Egypt, we were considered among the firmest. Shomer Shabbat, and Tefillah, Bet HaKnesset, and Kasher, and Berachot, and this, for that community was considered very good. But when she came to New York, and she connected, and my father connected to the world of Shiurim and Torah, things changed. We saw there was much more to it. Her sons and daughters went to yeshivot, to Bet Yaakov. But the crowning achievement was the connection to Rabbi Miller. Once he started giving shiurim conferences in Flatbush, his shul was still in East Flatbush, but he came every Thursday night. He gave in some places. So she went one time. Let's go. We heard it's a good shiur. After she came back, she was enthralled. Rabbi Miller fitted in with her, and she fitted with Rabbi Miller. She liked strong, clear hashkafa, forcefully and clearly said, without mincing words, without pisharot, explaining the things the way it has to be. The concept of things the way it should be was very strong with her. That's the way it should be. That's what it has to be. Many people, including ourselves, will say, yeah, of course there is an ideal way, the way it should be, but what can you do? Then in reality it is different, with America, different door. She didn't like that, the way it has to be. And she came back from Rabbi Miller, or she read something from him, see what it says. It says this and that. You have to do it. When she, in Shabbat, and before Shabbat sometimes she read the parasha. And she liked to read Mefarshim on the parasha, in English and in French. She had one good Mefarsh in French. When she saw something, she got excited about it. You see what it says? It says this and that. We say nice pirush, okay, nice pirush. But she got excited. Look what it says. And she tried to make it a reality for her life, for us, for everybody. That's the way it's supposed to be. Very recently, a few weeks ago, she read the pamphlet they put out of Rabbi Miller's on the parasha on Vayigash about Olan Mohadin, Oilan Miloma Tochecha. Ani Yosef, the famous word. We all know the word and we heard it. And, for us, something which I heard already many years ago. She said, you have to think about Yom Adin. You can't forget about Yom Adin. She mentioned it in a way that she showed that she was concerned with it. We have to, Yom Adin, you have to be prepared for Yom Adin. Yom Adin, everybody has to pass Yom Adin, Yom Adin. It was her a very strong reality. We don't know if it's Message min Hashamayim that she would aware. We don't know. But, obviously, it's something which became very present in her mind. We didn't know about it at the time. Whenever I spoke to her on the phone, how are you feeling? How is your health? Baruch Hashem. Sometimes you'd say, not so great. I have a bronchitis. I have a cellulitis in the field. But we're going through. Be'ezrat Hashem. I'm going. I'm doing what I have to do. But we heard from other people that the last few weeks she suffered a lot. And maybe it came into her mind that she wants to rejoin the Borei Olam. Could be, we don't know, because it seems that it was more than usual. So we don't know. Al kol panim, ratzon yir'ah v'yaseh. The Siyata d'Shmaya which was at the way the Levaya in Israel was performed, she was Nikibar less than 24 hours after a Petira in Israel, on Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Har Hatzot. It's something tremendous. The way everything was mistader, because she also wouldn't have liked a long drawn out affair. She liked everything, La'inyan. So we felt she lived as a tzaddiket. She lived as a princess. Her bearing was royal, was hashuv. Isha hashuva misat atzma. Not because people mahashiv her. She was hashuva. People felt it. People felt that she was a special person. People felt that, we heard about ladies who came from other places, and they used to come to her, to talk to her, because they felt she was inspiration. She was a mahazek, a close friend of her, Mrs. Mariz Netanel, Shebel Haim Tobim, came to us and she said, who will I ask advice to? Who will I go to? I don't have anyone to go to. Adele is not here. Mrs. Adele is not here. Usually a person that age, either is in an old age home or is with nurses around her, and just have to take care of them, that's all. But to derive from that person teaching, lessons, inspiration, morals, hizukim, it's very rare. But zachta lezeh. Yeh ratzon that we should be worthy of everything she taught us, everything she showed us. And my father, Alav Shalom, should be proud of her family. She has a lot of family to be proud of. Shalom should be all worthy, and should be Melitz Yosher on the family, on the Kehillah, on all Am Yisrael. And Bezrat Hashem, we should be able to see her and my father and Judy and all the Metei Israel very soon. And Had HaMetim B'Rav Rabbeinu, Amen.
When Mr. Shwekey was nifta, Olav Shalom, many years ago, the Rebbetzin Miller said that the Rav didn't sleep good. He was something what never took place by Rabbi Miller. Rabbi Miller was in charge of his emotions. But when he was nifta, the Rebbetzin said that he was ois mensch. He couldn't get to himself. I think if Rabbi Miller would be living with the Petira from Mrs. Shwekey, Aleh Shalom, he would also not found himself. Mrs. Shwekey, I'm not a son, I'm not a grandson. She was a living Kiddush Hashem. It's a world, the world went down tremendously. It was a world with Kedusha, from Mrs. Shwekey, Aleh Shalom. It's a different world. I don't even know how many people it will take to bring her Kedusha and her Amunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I went to visit her, not too many times, but enough times, not enough. Chacham David said, she gave hadracha. She gave me hadracha. I came into her, she was sitting by her daughter and her son-in-law Aryeh, and I spoke to her a few summers ago. I could see how, when she comes to the Olam HaEmes, besides her husband being makabel her, and her daughter, she told me when she lost her daughter, Aleh Shalom, Rabbi Miller came in and gave her a zog, Mrs. Shwekey, you can't fall apart. She said those words pierced my heart, made a hole in my heart. And for the chizuk, what he gave me, I could have never continued the way I did. But once he told me those words, I went back to my avodas Hashem to the fullest extent. She was Malav Goddess, like Chacham David said, in Yira Shamayim, the old time, Isha Tzidkonius. We can't even, it's not shaykh even to be mazvah. I have no words to explain. I was speaking to my mother-in-law, Rabbi Tzimbarak Shetichya, when Mrs. Shwekey, Olav Shalom, was living by Mrs. Malka. My mother-in-law went to Seder every week once. She says she can't even describe in words the tzidkis and the chassidus and the precious from this holy woman. She took all her Rebbes. She was a Talmud, totally bottled to her Rebbe, Rabbi Vigda Zechrein Levracha. Totally bottle mavutel kafra da'ara. She even told me, I took her once from Lakewood back to Flatbush. I drove her in the car. I was going on the Verrazano Bridge. I gave a glitch. I started to scream, Shema Yisrael. She said, don't worry, Hashem is with us. May this holy woman, look what kind of door she put up. My Zayda, the Mata Stafarov, used to say, the Eibishter doesn't bleibt keinen schuldig. The Eibishter doesn't owe anything to anybody. When you do it Mesirat Nefesh, the Eibishter pays you back. Look what kind of family this holy woman left over. Sons, Geoinim, Tzadikim, Einiglich, Mabitzei Teire. Mrs. Malka herself is a princess, is a tzidkonius. Mrs. Aryeh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm sure when she comes to the Olam HaEmes, besides her husband being Mekabel her, and her daughter, and her parents, Rabbi and Rebbe and Miller, if you would have seen how when she came into the Ezra Shnoshim, to Rebbe and Miller's Ezra Shnoshim, how they greeted each other, how they kissed each other. Now, she's zoiche to go in their mechitzas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shebench the whole Shwekey mishpacha from this ptira, from this great tzidkonius. Rabbi Yosef Rosenblum, I just want to conclude. Rabbi Yosef Rosenblum said by Rabbi Miller's Levaya, Anachanami, you could take 1,000 people, they'll know how to learn as much as Rabbi Miller learned. But what he's all about, das weiß ich schon nicht, if we could do. Rabbi Isai, we all sitting over here have a big job. We have to take over the Simchas HaChaim, the Emunah, the Tzidkis, the Chassidus, and the Precious. And let's hope that this holy woman, B'Teich Shiva, when she's standing by Pamalya Shamayla, she's besheesh the Shechina, that the Eibusha should have Rachmanis in us, and send us the Geula Shlema. Toich, even now, tonight, Toich Shiva, the Schusim what Meis has, in the Svarim it says, B'Shah Shiva, is La'ela, the Eibusha bench, Chacham David, Chacham Shmuel, Chacham Menachem, who's not here, needs a refuah Shalema, and the rest of the family, they should only have Nachas and Simchas.
Birshut Rabbanim, my family, my dear brother, my dear sisters, Menachem, my brother in Florida who can't come, and the extended family and all who came to show kavod. I also have to ask Reshut of my dear mother, Zechrona Lebracha. Gemara says, Ahim li behespeda, the hatam ka'imna, the niftar, the nifteret is around us. I have to be very careful what to say in front of my dear mother. My mother was not easy to talk. She doesn't like to be talked about. But after asking the Hachamim in Yerushalayim, and they suggested that we do this tonight, because tomorrow night, Tuesday night, is Rosh Chodesh, I won't be able to speak about her. So it was decided that we're going to hold this gathering in her memory, and yes, speak about her. As my dear brother said, this was not expected. She was in good health, relatively. We spoke to her the day before. She had all kinds of little aches, infections, medicines she needed. But this heart attack that happened was totally unexpected. However, as Chacham David said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with us, and the Hesed that we saw, I had zechut to be with her in Yerushalayim at the Levaya. Many, many people came on a Friday afternoon. I think she does want us to talk, so she's making the mic not work. And indeed, within less than 24 hours, the Kibbutz was done b'chavod, al pi minhagei Yerushalayim. The Nevi'im, in the Navi, in the Haftarah, it talks about Isha Gedolah. My mother, Zichrona Libracha, was Isha Gedolah. We knew it. The family, we knew it. The friends, those who were close to her, knew it. But even those far away, they knew there was something there. As my dear brother explained it, she was a princess, she had nobility. I was younger when we came from Egypt. And I remember growing up, it was a regular household. My mother made baklava, she made all the Syrian pastries, all the food. She was part of a whole social circle. Those days, the ladies played cards. They had their social. And all of a sudden, I don't remember exactly at what point, one day, everything took on a different curve. So much so, years later, my mother was in my house for Shabbat. You know how the kids, we had all our kids were little kids, they play games. One of the games they play were playing cards. They play spit, I forgot the names of it. My mother, Aliyah, saw cards. She was horrified. Cards? You know how hard it was for me to throw it out? You bring it into the house? And we're trying to explain to her, Ma, it's not that kind of game. It's the kid. The cards were never allowed to be in the house ever again. That's an example. She started off as a regular lady, and she grew. She had this inner desire to grow through learning. She attached herself, as was mentioned, to Rabbi Miller, to the Mir Yeshiva. She prodded and encouraged my father when my father retired, what are you going to stay home for? You're going to go to World Bound? My father, Hazit, he worked hard his whole life. He would, at a certain point, consider taking it a little easier. He went to how many shiurim? He was so proud. We're learning Temurah. We're learning Bechorot. We're learning Shev Shemateta. My father, at his age, learning. Rabbi Miller had 48 shiurim a week. And my father would spend a lot of the time with him. Of course, the Thursday night class of Rabbi Miller, the classic. Friday night in the winter, deep winter, Chovat HaLevavot. They all went. Shabbat afternoon in the summer, my father would hold a seat for this person, for that person, and he encouraged us to go. Whenever I was in Brooklyn for Shabbat, I have to go to Rabbi Miller. But it was the Rabbi Miller, it was the Rabbi Miri Yeshiva, it was also all the Hachamim that my father and mother invited to their house for Shabbat. Many, many Hachamim spent Shabbatot in our home. That influence, those Hachamim who are known in our community, who threw out televisions, who brought Tzeniut, who brought the understanding of we have to become Bnei Torah. But my mother herself had a certain drive within herself to grow. As my dear brother said, she used to learn, love to learn. Pirushim. And the deep ones. Rab Mordechai Miller from England. The deep Pirushim on the Perashah. And she was enthralled. She would stay up late at night, Friday night. We would all go to sleep. She would be sitting in my study at the dining room table. Shabbat afternoon. When she came for Yom Tov, she had a lot of difficult time sleeping at night. She was always reading, always learning, always growing. She herself had such a way of looking at things, it was mind-boggling. After Hurricane Sandy, she came to my house she was in the house. She was so enthralled and shocked, and you have to take me around. I want to see what happened. We would go, some streets we couldn't drive. But whenever we could drive, we saw trees topple down. Shtabach Shemo. And she would look and amazed at the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you could see someone who took things to heart. On my own block, we're walking one day with her, just walking. One of my neighbors planted a tree, 2 trees. After the hurricane, one of the trees fell. Okay, it happens. She looks at me and says, you see, the roots are not good. The roots, you have to have good roots to be strong. She made musar from the tree. The last time I took her to the ocean, she loved the ocean. The Kol Hashem Alamayim, the waves. Last time, she didn't look at the waves, not the water. You see the clouds? 3 layers of clouds. The light clouds, and on top of that, darker, and look, did we ever look at the clouds in that way? When we used to drive her home to Lakewood from Deal, so you go down Deal Road,
and then you turn on the ramp to go onto Deal Road, to go onto Route 18. We made the turn. She would exclaim, "Shtabach Shemo, look at that curve. Look how they made it so perfect. You saw?" I was just driving, just trying to make sure to stay in the lane. She's commenting on the perfection of the curve that you have in thousands of ramps. Who paid attention? She did. One day she walks into my study, I was learning, and she looks around. I have pictures of Gedolim. "You don't have a picture of Rabbi Miller?" I said, "Ma, I have in the den, you don't have one in the study?" She was so disappointed in me. You know, when my mother was disappointed in you, I felt like a schoolboy who was reprimanded and put in a corner. You felt so bad with yourself. I went quickly, found another picture of Rabbi Miller. I stuck it in between. It's still today. It's sticking, it's covering another gadol. I forgot who it was. But even that was not enough for her. It was like too little, too late. As my dear brother said, when she saw Rabbi Miller's yeshiva struggling, "We have to help. Go to your shul. You have rich people. Go ask them for money." I said, "Ma, we have a lot of different..." "Rabbi Miller, it's what we are. Whoever we are is because of him." I said, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell her this is his son's yeshiva. It's not Negeya. Hakarat HaTov." She had such Hakarat HaTov. One day, years ago, I forgot why, when, she got some money from insurance after the tragedy. She'd call me. Every yeshiva that we went to, I want to send them $1,000 or I don't know. I know she sent Philadelphia yeshiva $1,000. That's a lot. That's your insurance money. That's your money. No. They never charged us full tuition. They helped us. You know how I knew? There was a parlor meeting for Philadelphia yeshiva in Deal. Someone's house, Rebellia, that's my Rebbe's, Chrono Libracha, came. His speech was reading the letter that my mother sent him. That was his speech. That's how I found out. He read the whole letter that my dear mother, Zichronah Libracha, wrote, thanking him for taking care of my son. And this is the small contribution. And he showed us that she gave him $1,000 then, years ago. And that's the same Hakarat HaTov for Rabbi Miller, for everything that we gain from. But as my dear brother said, even things that not attached to us. If someone was hurting, someone was in pain, a boy has to go to yeshiva, almanah, a bride, the Keren Yehudit that she raised money for, and she wrote the checks painstakingly by hand. We said, Ma, someone else? Never. No one else could write a check. Every time she wrote, it was like, Damim tarte mashma. Her blood went into that check. It could be $18. In Israel, when I just went now this week for the Levaya, all the rabbis who came, I thought they came for me. They said, no, your mother. I used to go to her house. She always gave me money. Hakarat HaTov that they had for her. But she worked at it. We made the Heshbon over 30 years, Keren Yehudit, each year about $30,000. All her grandchildren help her. My dear nephew Eli Dayan and his whole family, and all the others, they worked so hard to make that Keren Yehudit work. Do the math. Be $1 million she gave out. That's also a zichriyot that she will have as she goes to Olam HaEmet. It's my mother, there's no question. It's not the battery, it's my mother. My dear mother was part of a wonderful family, the Shoshani family. Her brothers, her sisters, her mother, Nonna, Mrs. Nonna Mazal Shoshani, was a great lady herself. And I'm sure that had to do a lot with her being who she was. Now I think it's fitting and proper to mention, as my dear brother mentioned, the tsar that she had when she lost my sister Judy was never forgotten. She spoke about it. She couldn't mention Judy's name for years. She would say, your sister. As time went on, she said her name, but always there was a reverence, there was a certain awe. She knew it was an unbelievable tragedy. People have tragedies. It shaped her, like my brother said. It touched her, it made her. But at the same time, every year, about the Yortzeit, there was always some simachot in our family. And she would always point out, look, around this week, there's a Sheva Berachot. There's a baby born. There's a bar mitzvah. Your sister. Ever since my sister and father passed away, so close to each other, there was no way my mother was going to live alone. The blows were too deep and too severe. My dear sister, Mrs. Sarah Malka, they call her today the Rabbanit, the Rebbitzin. When I go to Brooklyn, they ask you, who are you? Oh, you're Mrs. Malka's brother? That's my new title. She took her in, belev v'nefesh. She took her in with an open heart, with her dear husband, alav shalom, Victor, Mr. Victor Malka. Mr. Victor Malka had such kavod for my mother. He would call her the Queen Mother. He says, my wife is the Queen, and your mother is the Queen Mother. You know how many Rabbanim traipsed through his living room? And he would tell me, hey man, I can't believe it. Ashra Onos, 10:30, they're still knocking on the door to collect money. I can't believe it. But he did it with love. He did it till he left this world. So my dear sister and her husband and her family gave her achsanya, gave her a place to live. She had her own room downstairs, independence, and yet part of the family. She had a beautiful 25 years. And then my dear brother-in-law Victor passed away. And my mother said, I cannot hold your sister home. Your sister's running, giving shiurim to the whole world. I can't tie her to the house. I have to live somewhere. She mentioned a few times, I should go to a home. Ma, you're never going to go to a home. A home? No. So her son, Shelomo Malka, Marad Atra of Shulamit, and his dear wife Florence, opened up their home, opened up their heart, opened up their family, and took her in, continuing the tradition of his mother. And that gave my mother, no question, years, the best quality years she could imagine. To live in Lakewood, to have all her grandchildren and great-grandchildren coming to visit her. To be surrounded by love, by caring. And yet, she had her own independence. She needed to go and close the doors. They built her the doors. There were no doors there. She needed doors. Florence, Shlomo, make the doors. Make the doors. When she needed to tune out, she had the best way to tune out. She took out her hearing aid. That was the end. The world could go on, not negaya. She was on her own words. She would read, pray, Tehillim, Minha. We called her up, 1 minute, find her hearing aid. We come to visit her, find the hearing aid, put it in, and then she could rejoin the action. There are not enough words, Rabotai, to thank Florence and Shlomo and the family. Because I'll tell you something. My mother, as my dear brother said, my mother loved Hinuch in the way that's proper. And sometimes she would see something that she wouldn't hold back. It's not easy for these kids to have an elderly woman coming, telling them what to do. She did it b'chukhmah, she did it with hand, and they took it with love. And as Florence told me that day, the bitter day on Thursday, that we did not expect. We didn't expect it. It was unbelievable. The night before she was talking, we went to the hospital with her. I had just come back from Israel. I went to the hospital, and the doctor says, she's very critical. She's 94. I said, she was perfect. He looks at me, perfect? You know how many things are wrong with her? Her leg was swollen, infected. I said, no, her heart was good. Everything is good with her. Her mind is good. He said, sir, she's 94. We weren't expecting it. It was totally min hashamayim. Totally how maybe she had a premonition, maybe she thought, she knew, but till that moment, she had such a beautiful stay in this home. And we were expecting it to continue. And then, when the tragedy happened, and we're talking about where to sit, Florence said, in the hospital, no, sit in my house. I said, Florence, it's too hard for you. You can't sit in your house, you have little kids. Sit in Brooklyn or in my house. She lived here, I want the kids to see, I want them to know. And she kept on saying, my kids loved grandma, and they gained more from grandma than grandma gained from her. Another man that I have to mention is Achel Atov, Dr. Fariwa, Shem Yishmerehu. She called him Malach Rafael. Every time something would go wrong, call the doctor. And then when the doctor did his magic, medicine, shots, his words of encouragement, he would say to her, Adele, nah, you're good. How's my blood pressure? Fine. He would tell me on the side, it's a little high, but don't tell her. One time she had a bad case of bronchitis. So she said, I have pneumonia. No, you don't have pneumonia. He tells me on the side, take Coney Island, do an x-ray. Maybe she has a little touch, but don't tell her. He gave her hizuk. Sometimes I would have to go pick up medicine. She would say, did you hug him and kiss him? I said, I shook his hand. No. So after that, every time I saw the doctor, hug and kiss. Dr. Fariba. And he didn't know that she passed away. The hospital called him to find out which medicine she was on, and he was so busy the whole day, he only found out at midnight. And he texted me. I was already in Israel. I'm sorry for your loss. She was a great lady. I texted him back, Doctor, you kept her alive. Rabotai, it's hard to stop speaking, but it's time. On the plane, back and forth, and even when I was in Israel Shabbat, I can't learn. Adele is not allowed to learn. You don't know what it means, the ability to learn Torah until you can't learn Torah. You don't appreciate. I'm learning Hilchot Avilut. Okay, this halakha. And then I saw Rabbi Pinhasi, who writes in introduction, he brings the Rambam. Rambam says, "Ehad min habura shemet, yidagu kol habura." Because the time of when someone passes away, if everyone feels bad, it means it was meant to be. We should feel bad. That means we had something to do with it. Because if not, we didn't deserve to feel bad. It wouldn't have happened. So he says it's time for us to do teshuvah. When you look at it that way, Rabotai, of course we're saying goodbye to a great lady, to my mother, to grandmother, to great-grandmother, but we're also taking the musar that she always gave in her lifetime and even post her life, that we have to continue to be better. The boys to continue learning Torah and steiging and Yirat Shamayim, the girls, the tzeniut, which meant so much to her. When she was in Ateret in Brooklyn, they needed someone to sew the mechitza. My mother was a great seamstress. She volunteered, she's going to sew the mechitza, the curtain. There was a sign, they put up a sign in Brooklyn. Anyone who had, in those days they had the skirts with the slits. Anyone who wants the slits sewn up, free, come, I'll do it. That's her chesed, as my brother said. She always did chesed. But her intention, her goal was there should be kedusha, there should be tzeniut. So Be'ezat Hashem, our family and our friends and all those who knew her, all those who were touched by her, may we take upon ourselves extra in Torah, extra in Yirat Shamayim, in tzeniut, that teshuvah, that uplifting, that hit'orerut will give her nahat ruach. When a person leaves this world, as purified as she was, and as many nisyonot that she had, but there's always a din in Shamayim, there's always a judgment. And she needs zechuyot, she needs packages, she needs mitzvot to help her. So if we do those mitzvot, and we do those extra deeds, Be'ezat Hashem, that will elevate her neshama, her pure neshama, and then she'll pray for us, she'll pray for the entire family, and for Am Yisrael, lo nosif leda'ava od, and we bring Be'ezat Hashem, Geula Shelema, tihye nafshat Torah b'tzorah hayim, amen.
Rabotai, I was not scheduled to speak. My dear uncle, we decided it was going to be the older generation is going to speak, Uncle Eliyahu Aryeh. And we know it's difficult to speak about Grandma. But Uncle Eliyahu said that he didn't want to speak at this point. He couldn't, his voice. So we'll just wrap it up. It's a tremendous loss that we had this week with the passing of Grandma. Really, after all what was said, we realize what was said in the beginning. This is Isha Gedolah. This is a tremendous lady. One of the things that prompted us to have Grandma in the house, as was mentioned before, my dear mother, how she took care of Grandma for 28 years, non-stop, and in the little kitchen, together, and another person in the kitchen means another de'ah in the kitchen, but there was never an argument. And Grandma wants the beets with the vinegar, and my father can't handle the vinegar. No problem. We have 2 sets of beets on the table. That's the Grandma beets, and that's the other one. That's how we grew up. That was the Hinuch. And as Hacham David mentioned, the hatred that she had to Devarim Betelim, I can never forget this. We were young boys around the Shabbat table in the first court home, and we were talking like regular kids, and we were schmoozing, and Grandma was not happy. And as Hacham David mentioned, when she was not happy, she said it. Devarim Betelim. Devarim Betelim. Again and again and again. And at that point, we were not really interested in listening, unfortunately. I remember one of our, I'll say, the Chabod, my brother Moshe, we said, this house is very difficult. You're in the yeshiva, the mashgiach gives you over the head. You come home, you get it from Grandma and from your mother, and from that's how we grew up. The house was a house of Musar, and it was true. And we were younger, we didn't appreciate it. But when we got older, and we started our own families, and we started bringing up children, and then we realized this is not something regular. When you grow up, you don't realize. En ba'alanes makir biniso. When we saw what was out there, and we saw the tests of the generation, and we said to ourselves, this is something not regular. And I have to mention, like Uncle Shmuel mentioned before, my wife went belev nefesh. Many times we mentioned we wanted to have Grandma in the house, and we invited her, and she came, and she was not happy. I can't sleep here, I can't sleep there. My wife went all the way out of the way to make her a partition, to do everything. Tells me, Shlomo, go bring the bed from upstairs. I said, nah, she'll sleep on the thing, it's okay. No. Go, bring it. This is what Grandma needs. I know, listen to me. Now she's only coming for Shabbat. She came for Shabbat, and Grandma was so impressed. She said, this is love. This is love. And that's why she stayed there because of my wife, that she stayed in the house. But many times I told her, like we said, Grandma, you think we're giving you, you're giving us. What does it mean to have Grandma at a Friday night table? The kids are normal, the kids are regular. They're sitting on the couch reading a book, and Grandma's at her seat screaming, the malachim are here, the malachim are here. And the kids, okay, they come, they don't come. But she was tough about it, and she would scream. And to my wife's credit, it's not so easy. I said, honey, I'm used to this. This is, we grew up with this. This is okay. She's like, I never heard of such a thing. You don't scream at the kid like that. But to her credit, she went and she made peace with it. And she called Uncle Shmuel, what should I do? Yes, you have to tell her this, tell her that, not. And Grandma learned, she understood very well. I'll tell you a story. One of my kids was out of line. And beautiful, good kids. Out of line, by the way, means Devarim Betelim, that type. And Grandma was with me and my wife in the room, and she was crying to us loudly. What is going to be with this person? What is going to be? I said, Grandma. She's listening. Grandma looks at me. I know. And she's screaming. And but tears, real screaming. I said, Grandma, please, But she wanted to show that as much as she loved us, as much as she cared for us, Borei Olam comes first. You have to be Eved Hashem. You have to be strict with yourself. I was really not planning on speaking, but I told myself if I would speak, I would bring a letter that she wrote. I believe that it's Kedai. My father-in-law showed it to me. He mentioned, he says, look at this letter. We have a book on the table. It's called a Thank You Hashem book. She was a Rabbi Miller Talmud, and she trained us that when something goes good, my wife instituted, you write something in the book. So all my kids would write, and Grandma would write. And she wrote a whole thing thanking Hashem for Florence, for the house, for this, for that. And then on the next page, she wrote a message. I wish I had it here. It's Kedai to get a copy. We live in this world to serve Hashem. We live in this world to do. In the next world, there is no doing. It is over here that we do. Help us, Hashem, that we can do. Help us, Hashem, that we can come up to the next world with all our zechuyot. This is the paper that she wrote, and it's there sitting in my house. And she signs, thank you, Hashem, for everything, Grandma. This was the type of person that she was. This is the Isha Gedolah that she was. It was mentioned before, she was very regular. She was normal. She understood she understood what's going on in life. She understood good taste. She understood, like one of my Moshe Shwekey mentioned to me, he went to a wedding and she went to a wedding and she would describe the whole wedding. That means that takes 15 minutes. And the chandelier, and this and that. She appreciated every little detail. She understood everything. But at the end of the day, what did she have with her? Nothing. All she had was Borei Olam. All she had was Tehillim. All she had was Ma'asim Tovim. In my house, there was a little, the girls were getting older, they needed their own line. Grandma needs her own line too. So I decided, Grandma, I'm going to get you a cell phone. I don't want a cell phone. Grandma, you need another line. No, I don't want a cell phone. I thought, Grandma, why you don't want a cell phone? I want to go light. I said, Grandma, what? I want to go light. I don't want to be too heavy. I don't want to have too much. When I go to the next world, I want to be light. I don't want to have any kinyanim. That was Grandma. This is not something that we hear, the stories that we hear every day. I woke up after the Petirah. The next day, in the morning, I used to have to dodge her. She would go to the bathroom, and I would have to, find my way out. And we woke up the next morning, and she wasn't there, and it was painful. I felt the void. I felt I missed her. And I told myself, how did Grandma do it? She went through devastating tragedies, as we heard. She picked herself up. She was mehazek herself. That's the way you think? I told myself. You have to think like this. We had the zechut to have Grandma for 4 years in our house. We have to thank Hashem that we had the zechut of having her. We appreciate you, Hashem, that you gave us Grandma for 4 years. And all the cousins appreciated. She was there for them. She was taking care of them. And that's the way we're supposed to think. Grandma taught us how to think, how to change a tragedy and grow from it. She told me once in the kitchen, when I lost my husband and my daughter and the house, like was mentioned before, I thought I'm going to die. There is no way I'm going to do it. I said, Grandma, look at you now. I didn't think I would make it. I thought I'm going to die. That's what she told me. We'll just end with this. Grandma, you took chizuk in Borei Olam. You took your tragedies and you transformed them into a way of growing, a way of steiging, a way of getting closer to Borei Olam. But like was mentioned, look what you leave over. Borei Olam shows, Borei Olam sees, Borei Olam saw what you did, and he rewarded you with kavod. Look at your children, look at your grandchildren. Not everyone is zocheh to this. That's because you stuck with Hashem. You lived with Hashem. And therefore, you were zocheh. Therefore, you were zochah that you have a family that you have. Yiratzon, you should be a meritza yosher for us, that we should follow in your ways, that we should take the path and grow and keep on growing. Uncle Eliyahu will say a few words.
difficult to speak. I have a problem. But there's one thing that bothered me, and I'm sure it bothered everybody here as well. Such a woman, an Eshet Chayil, such a rush job on her levaya. Even with the rush job, a lot of people never made it. And even in Eretz Israel, when she had the zechut to be, the Korah should be before Shabbat. Big zechut, we know that. But the Chaver Kadisha there told Cham Shmuel, you have 5 minutes to talk. No Hespedim, very few, a rush job here, rush job there. I couldn't come to terms with it. Very difficult, such a Eshet Chayil. But on the way back, I was together with my wife, my son, Aaron David, in his car. And Rabbi Shemuel Miller was there with us, and her daughter. On the way back, Aaron David says, I have one tape of Rabbi Miller by accident in the car. Let's play it. Okay. You know what that tape was? Anyone that thinks that there's such a thing as a coincidence is making a terrible mistake. The tape was about the Parah Adumah, the red heifer, the red cow. In Parashat Chokat, and Rabbi Miller goes on and explain, why is it that you take such a beautiful red cow worth a lot of money? The Chachamim paid thousands and thousands of dinarim, gold dinarim, to pay for that red cow. And you take it and you burn it and you make ashes out of it. Why you do like that? Why is that? Rabbi Miller goes on to explain that the real existence says, you take that cow, and what do you do with it? You bring tahara to the people. It's metaher, someone who's tameh. That's the real existence. And he said the same thing is in this world. In this world, the real existence is not you, a person in the guf. The real existence is when the neshama leaves the guf and he goes into the next world. It was so apropos. Besides the fact that we know Rashi brings down the Midrash in Parashat Chokat that Gedolam mitat tzadikim, it's a kapara mitat tzadikim, just like Parah Adumah. Because right after Parah Adumah in Parashat Chokat, right after that, it talks about Vatamot Sham Miriam. Miriam passed away there. Can't believe it's just a coincidence. Rabbi Miller is telling us that Mira, your mother, is Ochal Olam Haba. And it talks about Chiyat HaMetim. The Svarim talk and they say that before you go to Gan Eden, there's a mishpat. And after Gan Eden, when the time comes for Tchiyat HaMetim, not everybody is Zocher, even those that went to Gan Eden, not necessarily today go to come back to Tchiyat HaMetim. That's a higher type of existence. And Lav Kol Adam Zocher Hazeh. Rabbi Miller was eulogizing Adele Bat Mazal. No such thing as a coincidence like that. Adele Bat Mazal is Zocher Olam Haba. And Adele Bat Mazal Zocheret Tchiat HaMeitim. What a beautiful hesped. I felt consoled. We heard a lot about the tragedies that she had to go through. And it was difficult. Nobody says it's not. It is difficult. But she learned from her mother, Nonna. Her emunah pshuta. Whenever we used to ask her, after she was an almanah for a number of years, Nonna, who's with you? Which one of the children, grandchildren are with you? Nobody was with her. She said, Imo, Hashem is with me. She was able to take everything. She believed Hakol me'et Hashem. Everything is from Hashem. Hakol b'cheshbon, and everything is with an accurate. Hakol l'tova, and everything is l'tova. There's no ra'ah that comes from Hashem. Grandma inherited that from Nonna. It was difficult, no question about it. And no one should ever have to go through it. But she believed it as well. Kol me'et Hashem, whatever the difficulty may be, Kol me'et Hashem, Hakol b'cheshbon, Hakol l'tova. Everything is a good tova. Sometimes we don't know it, we don't see it, but we believe it. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki la'olam chasdo. Ki la'olam sometimes could mean ki ne'elam. It's hidden. When the goodness is hidden by a facade of quote-unquote ra'ah. Hodul Hashem ki tov ki la'olam chasdo. Even when it's hidden, it's the ki tov. Her emunah pshuta, her maasim tovim. I didn't come to eulogize her. When he asked me to speak, I said, it's my way of hakarat tov. For there's so many times that she helped us in every way. She helped us. On the spur of the moment, she would pick herself up from Brooklyn, take a train to Port Authority and take the bus, and then they come hours traveling. She did it with such a... I don't like to look at her as an old woman that was shuffling with her walker from the chair to the stove, from the chair to the sink. I like to look at her as a vibrant young woman, forever giving and giving. And after she finishes giving, she gives some more. I'd like to say one thing in the Tachnonim we say, and She'emunah Avadu, the people who are men of Emunah Avadu have left us, they're gone. And I'm going to apply this to Grandma. And She'emunah Avadu, she has left us. Ba'im b'koach ma'asehem. She came with the strength of her maasim tovim. Giborim lamod peres mighty, yes she was. to stand in front of the breach of the immorality, of all the nonsense from the outside world, what the gutters of the culture that we live in, they want to bring into the house. She was a mighty one, Lama Peretz. Dochim et hagzerot. She pushed away evil decrees that Chas v'Shalom were being formulated in Shemayim against us. I believe it wholeheartedly, without a question. Without a question. With her tefillot, with her masim tovim, with her emunah pshuta, she was doche many, many gezerot. You and I are recipients of that. We have to have a hakarat hatov to her for that. Hayulanu lechoma. She was to us for a protective wall. She didn't let anything infiltrate from the gutter. Lamachse b'yom zam. Zoachim af balachsham, with her tefillot, she squashed af, the mekatrek that we want to bring af to arouse the anger of Hashem. Chema atzru b'shab'am, with their outcry, with her outcry, she would repel and hold back the chema, the anger. Moshe Rabbeinu says in Parshat Ekev, after the Chet HaEgel, Ki yagorti ma'af v'chema. I was afraid of the af and the chema. And the Mefarshim say ma'af v'chema is the malach that's called af and the malach that's called chema. Moshe Rabbeinu says Ki yagorti ma'af v'chema. Over here it says Zoachim af belach Hashem. She squashed the af with her tefillot, with her lachash. Chema asur b'shal'am. And the chema, the malach chema, she stopped b'shal'am with her outcry. Terem kra'u chanitam. Before she called out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you listened to her. Because she was precious in his eyes. Yodim la'ator ularatzot. She knew how to pray ba'amkut ularatzot and to appease Hashem. Ka'av v'chamta lema'anam. You, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like a father. You had mercy because of her. You had mercy on us because of her. You did not let her go back empty-handed. We all owe her hakarat hatov. We all owe her hakarat hatov. Unfortunate is the ones that would be learning Mishnayot for her, doing mitzvot for her, or reading Tehillim for her. Because you'll be the recipient of it as well. It's hard to say goodbye to her. We thought she would always be there. We hoped that the same way that she helped us and she protected us and was a protective wall around all of us, she'll be so, and she will be Melis Yosher. All her children, her Lev Tov that she had, her Lev Tov, her Ayin Tova. She rejoiced when you rejoiced. She was happy with you when you were happy. But she cried inwardly when, at night time, I'm sure, many a time, many a night, her pillow was wet from tears. But she kept it inside. But she rejoiced with you. And I'm sure she'll be a Melis Yosher for all of us. Machai Hashem Elakim Dimam al Kol Panim Bila Movet LaNetzach.
I was telling Rav Moshe and Shlomo, everything was said. But I'm here representing my father, who needs a refuah shlema. I really did not want to come up here. To be honest, I don't feel like I belong here. And then I said, you know what, I have a few minutes. I have to represent my father. How could I walk away? How could I go to him tomorrow? What am I going to say to him when they said, did you represent him? So, all the words were said. I just wrote down the feelings. I actually approached my chavrusa this morning with pages, a whole pamphlet. And he said, you know what, you got to cut this in half or make, some sort of short version because, there's a certain amount of patience. So I did it. But it's still a few minutes. I just brought up here, Shlomo mentioned a letter that Grandma wrote. I showed it to a friend of mine here. I brought one of the letters that I could find. A long letter written beautifully by Grandma, just showing Akarat Tov. It was in her blood. It wasn't easy, she writes in the letter, it wasn't easy for me to write this. Grandma, you weren't feeling well. You were older. You didn't just take a cell phone and text, Mazel Tov, have a good day. You took the painstaking detail. I see here, I'm reading it again. This is after my dear wife, Janine, who she loved like a daughter every time I saw her. It was a whole 5-minute introduction about Janine and what she's doing and what's going on. After we dedicated a cornerstone in the Special Children building for Yehudit. So I'm just going to read quickly what I wrote, the short version. Just take a few minutes because there's a lot to say. I was telling my chavrusa this morning. Everything I said in the prayers in the tefillah this morning, you could attribute to Grandma. You talk about Baruch She'amar, and then you say Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, and then you say Kol HaNeshama Tehalel Yah. Grandma, you were everything. You were really everything. Everything was God, everything was a Kadosh Baruch Hu, everything was thank you. Who will we go to? Friday night, Uncle Shmuel, Chacham Shemuel. So proud to say that you're my uncle. The kibud im that you had. Every time coming over to me and saying she's here, she's there, she feels good, she doesn't feel every day. How many details you have to take care of with the shul, with the klal? You showed us what it is to take care of a mother. Chacham David, we all know how proud she was. She was always talking and saying it in a way to teach me also. I was trying to find my way, what yeshiva, what this. She says, whatever it is, just go and learn. I said, Grandma, I got to find somewhere. No. He's here. He's everywhere. Put me against the wall. Hey. This is what I wrote today.
All of us here in this room feel the emptiness in our hearts. That, of course, I feel. The world is different. We all thought Grandma would live forever. I never thought that I would have to stand up here, eulogize her. And as I said before, I stand here representing my dear father. Why did we all think that she would live forever? You know why? Because she was larger than life. Why was she larger than life? I was there as a young boy. I'll never forget when she got the news that her daughter had passed on in a crash. I was there on the porch seeing her husband, my grandfather, pacing back and forth in total anguish. I was there on Rosh Hashanah a few weeks later with my father, when my dear grandfather passed away from a heart attack. I'll never ever forget. Grandma, how did you do it? How did you pick up the pieces? How did you continue serving your Creator with such joy? And as I said before the tefillot this morning, I think I know how. You were a true Eved Hashem, a loyal servant to your Creator. So many times when I was with you, Grandma, we were looking at pictures of family. You knew every single child's name and what they were up to in life. And many times I made that mistake, which I have to ask you forgiveness. Judy's picture came up. And your face changed colors. I saw your eyes welling up with tears. I have to ask you, as Uncle Shmuel said, your neshama is here. I didn't know as a young boy, and even years later, you mourned her every day. But you used that pain, as Rav Shlomo said, to elevate yourself. And this is what we call greatness. Your level was from the past, yet you always lived in the present. Greatness is you coming from Egypt as a simple girl. But when you saw the great Rabbi Miller, the great Tzaddik, alav shalom, and you heard him speaking about Hashem and how to live it for real, you stuck to it like bees to honey. Every moment of life was to gain more knowledge about Hashem and His beautiful world. You gave me always such strength that I can do anything. When I couldn't find what I was looking for in the yeshiva, as I said before this, you always said you were praying for me and my dear wife, Janine, and the kids. How much you loved her. I'll never forget when we called you from the hospital and told you that the first Adele Shwekey was born. You started to cry. And you told me on the phone, I quote, "I've waited my whole life for this." You always told me, Janine was the best gift I've ever received. You were right. When Janine and I dedicated the cornerstone in memory of Judy, Aleh Shalom, you wrote us this letter that I showed you before. Every other line in the letter, if you read it, so eloquently written, thank you, thank you, thank you. No, Grandma, thank you. What an honor. The greatest zechut we can ever ask for. Anytime I would mention a special child or someone you never ever met and was not well, I would be traveling somewhere to sing. And I would visit. And you always asked me to tell you exactly what happened on the trip, and I could not tell you sometimes. But you would cringe in front of me. You would sometimes cry. You felt everyone's pain and their sorrow. Like was said before, you were joyous in their joys. And that's what we Yidden call great. We know that from our Torah, when it says the reason Moshe was chosen, Vayetzeh Elechav, you could have been grieving in your own pain and suffering, but you chose to truly immerse yourself in everybody else. Why do we all feel the loss the way we do? I'm even talking about what Uncle Shmuel said, non-family members who said they can't sleep at night, people told me, because of you, Grandma. I know this was mentioned. I'm saying it for my own father and myself. Anshe Emunah Avadu, Uncle Eliyahu said. It doesn't say Anshe Shel Emunah. It says Anshe Emunah. It's part and parcel of who they were. When I say this, I'm going to think about my dear Grandma Adele. Through it all, you never lost faith. As a matter of fact, you got stronger. I'll never forget as a young boy walking on Avenue R with your grandma, and all of a sudden you stopped and stared at a tree which had big roots, and you looked up at the branches and said, Yishtabach Shemo. I'll never forget that vision. Look what a little seed can do. You put it in the ground, and look what comes out. You have a strong foundation, as Uncle Shmuel said. I'll never forget those lessons. You took every day, every sunshine, every rainy day. I never say ever to my children because of Grandma, oh, it's outside, it's not good out there. Because I once said one time when it was raining something a little bit negative, and she gave me a look that don't ever do that. I don't know how we're going to live without you. We will definitely try our very best to emulate your way you lived. You loved life, you loved Hashem, you loved His people. I wish one day we could write a book about you to teach so many girls the way you came from Egypt and adapted and worked extremely hard on yourself. And therefore, you were the happiest person in the world. Starting with the seed and then leaving a huge, beautiful tree, knowing exactly how many leaves they are. Her family tree, and has the great love for all of them. As I said before, you were larger than life. And that life right now won't be easy now to continue without you. But just like you continued, we will take upon things, B'lei Neder, in your memory. And just like Reb Chaim Shmuel Levitt said, on Keva Rachel, Rachel Imenu, cry for us again. We should be redeemed already. We know you're right there, Grandma. We know you're right there. I know you will ask Hashem to bring us the redemption we are eagerly waiting for. And that day will come when we'll cry no more.